The planet groaned like something ancient dying in its sleep. A deep tectonic moan that rattled the human pilot's boots long before he realized the ground wasn't supposed to move that much. Rylan Ward had seen collapsing stations, starships with their guts hanging out, and a mining outpost that literally exploded because someone labeled the wrong pipe. Oxygen but entire planets failing was new even for him. He muttered to himself that he should really start charging the universe hazard pay. Before stepping cautiously over a sinkhole that hadn't been there 5 seconds ago, he should have left. Any sensible human would have lifted off the moment the stabilizers flickered red on his scanner. But Rylan had never claimed to be sensible, and besides, derelict colonies meant abandoned tech, and abandoned tech meant money. Salvage was the closest thing the galaxy had to a treasure hunt, and Rylan was hopelessly addicted. He was picking through a half-collapsed plaza when he heard it, a soft, trembling sound barely louder than the wind. At first he thought it was metal creaking, maybe a pressure conduit failing, but the sound came again, higher, thinner, and unmistakably alive. A sob. Rylan froze, every instinct in him snapping to attention. Salvage law was very clear. Don't get involved with survivors unless absolutely necessary. But humans had a much older law written into their bones. If someone cried, you went toward the sound. You didn't abandon people, even if the universe politely requested you mind your own business. He followed the noise into the shadow of a toppled spire. Dust drifted like ash, and there, pressed against the shattered remains of what must have been a communal pillar, sat a girl. Not human, but vaguely humanoid, delicate limbs, pale violet skin, and a set of bioluminescent frills behind her jaw that drooped like wilted petals. Her clothing, if it could be called that, looked ceremonial and ruined in the same moment. She stared at something on the ground. A body. Another alien, older, with the same frill still, silent, dust coating every surface as though time had ended here long before the planet decided it had. Rylan's throat tightened. He stepped forward softly. Hey, he called gently. Are you hurt? The girl flinched like she hadn't heard a voice in days. Her wide, glassy eyes locked on him, bright, luminous, painfully earnest. She blinked, studying him with the slow, deliberate focus of someone processing shock. You're human, she whispered, as if saying the word would break something delicate. Last I checked, he replied. He hated how casually she said it, as if it were a fact of physics rather than a wound. Mira, he said, stepping toward her. I'm not leaving you. She locked her jaw. You don't get to decide that. Like hell I don't. For a moment, the room felt too small for both of them. Too much fear, too many unspoken feelings, too much imagined future pulling in different directions. So she did what she always did when emotion threatened to break her open. She deflected with dry humor. If you were sensible, she said, folding her arms, you'd run to the patrol ship and never look back. You'd get therapy, and a job, and food that isn't grown in dirt. I talked to. Arik stared at her. If I were sensible, Mira, I wouldn't have stayed in the first place. Silence, the devastating kind, swallowed the room. The air crackled with meanings neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Then Mira swallowed hard and muttered, stupid human, because it was either that or admit the truth. And Arik muttered, stubborn alien, because it was either that or admit the same. They carried on preparing for the patrol ship like it was a normal task. They organized their supplies. They packed crates of resources. They checked emergency shelters. They did everything the handbook for sane survivors would recommend except be honest about the one thing that mattered. Nights became the hardest. Arik sat awake at the table, sharpening tools. Myra pretended to sleep but kept glancing at him, as if memorizing him in case she had to live without him. If anyone had walked in, they might have mistaken the silence for tension between enemies, but it was the silence of two people terrified of wanting something the universe might rip away. Then came the storm, a vicious atmospheric tantrum right above their settlement. And storms in this dying world always brought raiders. Not scavengers this time. Organized, armed raiders. The kind who would take living beings as resources. Arik grabbed his rifle. Myra grabbed her blades. They exchanged the kind of look that didn't need language because it said too much. If one of us falls, the other lives. Neither of them accepted that. The attack came hard. Arik fought like the soldier he was. Efficient, brutal, pragmatic. Mira fought like a Velrix, fast, elegant. A blur of lethal silver. But there were too many. They were driven back toward the house. And Arik saw the moment Myra calculated the sacrifice, luring the raiders away so he could get inside and broadcast a distress flare. He knew it because she had decided before he could stop her. Myra, he yelled. She didn't answer. She just looked at him with the most infuriating, heartbreaking expression. Relief. The look of someone who thinks dying is easier than being left behind. She sprinted into the open with a scream of challenge. And Arik didn't hesitate. He tackled her into cover so hard they both slid across the mud. She snarled at him, furious. Let me go. No, you idiot. I can draw them off. Not without me you can't. Arik, this isn't your fight. Yes, it is. You are. The words froze up. They sat there in the storm, breath ragged. Enemies advancing, the universe collapsing around them, and she stared at him as if the confession physically rewound her heart. A raider rounded the corner. Myra snapped back into motion, and the fight became a blur again. But something had changed. They didn't fight side by side because they needed each other. They fought side by side because losing each other was no longer an option. When the last enemy fell and the rain finally eased, they slumped against the wall of the house, bruised, bleeding, clothes torn, adrenaline shaking their bones. No comedy could hide the feelings now. Myra whispered, barely audible, "You can't mean what you said." Arik laughed weakly, voice raw. "Mira, I have been meaning it for 2 years." She closed her eyes as if the honesty itself hurt. In another universe, maybe they would have kissed. Maybe they would have confessed everything. Maybe the moment would have turned from survival to something softer. But the patrol ship had already changed the future, and love didn't erase fear, it magnified it. So instead she leaned her forehead against his, breath shallow, voice shaking with humor that was also heartbreak. "You are the most irrational creature in the galaxy." "Good," he whispered. "Maybe irrational is what keeps you alive." They stayed like that until the storm died, holding on to the only thing the universe was still trying to take from them, each other. And when the rescue ship arrived in 38 days, they both knew one truth none of their rules had prepared them for. Winning the battle against raiders would be easier than surviving what came next, separation. The world did not simply collapse around them, it nagged, complained, and periodically tried to kill them with the passive-aggressive spite of a machine whose maintenance requests had been ignored for decades. Every few minutes the ground hiccuped, fissures ripped open new paths where old ones should have been, and the sky strobed with warning flashes that very clearly meant, "Leave before we explode." "Thanks." Rylan and Lacey sprinted between crumbling structures. Though sprinting was generously moved with an elegant glide even while panicking, whereas Rylan ran like someone late to a flight while wearing a backpack filled with regrets. Every step she took was measured and graceful. Every step he took sounded like self-inflicted bodily harm. "If this planet is falling apart," she panted, "why does it sound like it's complaining?" "Because it is," Rylan gasped. "Your colony wired the stabilizers into an AI feedback loop. It's not just dying, it's offended." Another shockwave hit. Lacey grabbed him with surprising strength, pulling him away from a collapsing walkway. Their bodies collided, her forehead slamming clumsily into his collarbone. She froze, frills flaring bright blue. "That was accidental contact," she said stiffly. "I didn't mean to engage in physical affection." "Pretty sure saving someone from being crushed doesn't count as flirting. I've been told I can't tell the difference." "That explains a lot." "Actually," she huffed, flustered, and kept walking with quick, irritated steps, though she didn't release his arm until the ground stopped trembling. Rylan led them toward the one remaining comms tower rising above the ruins like a stubborn middle finger to entropy. If they could reach it, maybe they could call the evac fleet. The hope was slim, but at least it existed. As they walked, Lacey kept glancing at him in strange intervals, each look some new combination of curiosity, embarrassment, admiration, and total confusion. Finally she spoke. "You risked your life for me back there." "Yeah," he shrugged, picking his way over debris. "Humans do that." "But why? You didn't know me." "That wasn't logical, correct? Then why?" "Because doing the logical thing has never once made humans happy." She stopped walking, staring at him like she'd just witnessed her first paradox. "You choose danger because it makes you feel good sometimes. Other times it's just instinct. We're built to protect each other, even if it hurts, even if it costs something." He paused. "It's stupid and beautiful and destructive and noble. We're complicated." Or her frills dimmed slowly. "I was taught emotion is a glitch, a weakness that distracts from purpose. And do you actually believe that?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at him with a vulnerability that wasn't naive anymore, just raw. "I don't know what to believe. Not anymore." They climbed a cracked staircase spiraling around the tower. When another tremor hit, Rylan stumbled. Lissy grabbed him again, bracing him with ease. She was stronger than she looked, an unsettling reminder of just how fragile humans were compared to the galaxy. She steadied him, and her frills glowed faintly in the dim light. He noticed she stared at the spot where their hands met, squeezing just slightly, as if trying to memorize the connection. "You keep doing that," he murmured. "Doing what?" "Looking at me like I'm an answer." She blinked, startled. "I'm not." "You keep saying it like you're trying to convince yourself." Lisi pulled back, defensive and embarrassed in a terribly human way. "I don't know what I'm feeling. I've never. This is all new. I forget I said anything." Rylan softened. "Hey, I'm not making fun of you." "You are," she said quietly. "But I don't mind. It feels warm. That's terrifying. Welcome to emotions." They reached the top of the tower terminal, flickering weakly, still connected to the orbital network. Rylan slapped power into it, rerouting circuits with the casual competence of someone who spent half his life convincing dying machines to work one more time. The screen lit up. A channel window opened. A voice answered. "Evacuation Fleet 318, state your priority." Rylan leaned toward the mic. "There's a survivor down here. Her colony missed her during boarding. We're requesting emergency retrieval before the planet finishes folding in on itself." A long pause. Then, almost bored, "Retrieval denied. Survival probability of surface individuals has fallen below acceptable risk threshold." Rylan blinked. I love how you said that like you're reading off a discount coupon. Rescue percentage now at 3.1%. Below regulation minimum. You're leaving a living person behind. Planet is at 44% Fleet cannot assume responsibility for persons who fail to self-preserve. Lacey stared at the console, expression crumbling. They're not coming. Ryland's jaw tightened. Yeah, he said darkly. They are bureaucrats. The tower shuddered under another quake. Dust rained from the ceiling in sheets. Ryland tore parts from the panel, jamming circuits into override nodes he hoped still obeyed electricity instead of spite. Ryland, she whispered, voice shaking. Even if you fix the tower, logic says we won't survive long enough for. He kept working. Logic can kiss the terminal powered down fully, frying itself in a final spark. Silence. Lys's voice broke like glass. Why did you try so hard? You could have fled already. You could have lived. He leaned against the console, chest rising and falling with exhaustion. I told you, he said softly. Humans don't leave people behind. Her eyes glistened. Her frills shimmered weak blue, the color of confusion, fear, and something else she didn't have a word for yet. She stepped closer, resting her forehead gently against his shoulder. The gesture was hesitant, hopeful, and new. If we survive this, she whispered, it will be your fault. He laughed shakily. Yeah, that's kind of our thing. The tower tilted. The world roared. And their only chance now lay not in logic but in each other. The third year on the ruined colony settled into a pattern that could only be described as beautifully dysfunctional, the kind of daily chaos that would make any interstellar anthropologist claw their own datapads in confusion. A human and a Velrix girl were not meant to build a domestic life together on a world missing a functioning climate system. And yet somehow they had. And somehow it worked. And somehow it was driving both of them slightly mad in ways they chose not to talk about. Myra was 19 now, tall for her species, with silver hair she refused to cut because she said it made her look feral and mysterious. Arik said it made her look like someone who lost a fight with a static generator, and she smacked him with a bundle of dried herbs. Their humor had become a language, half teasing, half confessions disguised as insults. He never said out loud that she reminded him he wasn't alone anymore. She never said out loud that he was the only person who'd ever loved her in a way that didn't require strength, status, or usefulness. They pretended they didn't know those things, because acknowledging them would mean admitting something bigger than the survival arrangement. They had developed rules. The rules made things predictable, and predictable meant safe. Rule 1. Mira has final say on anything medicinal. Rule 2. Arik has final say on anything that might explode. Rule 3. Nobody sleeps outside during storms, because the lightning occasionally tries to change direction mid-air and electrocute anything shaped like a mammal. Rule 4. Absolutely no talking about the time, Myra said, while half-conscious with a fever. If you were Velrix, I would mate bond with you. Arik agreed to Rule 4 before she even finished the sentence. They were incredibly responsible adults. Obviously, and yet, responsibility didn't change the slow, aching orbit that had formed between them. When Arik got injured repairing the satellite dish, Mira stayed awake 3 nights grinding herbs and whispering dark threats to the universe about what she would do if it took him away. When Myra fought off raiders, a pack of desperate scavengers looking for anything valuable, Arik trembled afterward, not from fear but from the clarity of knowing what he would destroy if she died. They had both brushed the truth and instantly backed away. So when the surviving colony beacon unexpectedly crackled to life one silent morning, the sound itself felt like betrayal. A Federation signal, a patrol ship en route. Estimated arrival, 61 days. The moment Myra read the message on the cracked screen, her shoulders stiffened. Arik didn't miss it. He never missed anything about her anymore, and that terrified them both. That's good, he said too brightly. We'll get food, water, transport, actual experts who can take over. You'll be safe. You'll be safe, she corrected, voice quiet but sharp. Humans are beloved everywhere. A tragic survivor with a military background. You'll be adopted by a dozen planets before you finish speaking your name. What? Myra. No one is. Velrix are not beloved, she snapped, then flinched as if she'd accidentally revealed too much emotion. She turned away. Most worlds tolerate us only because it's useful. Arik rubbed his forehead. You think they'll leave you here? They're rescuers, not collectors. She let out a humorless laugh, a soft, broken sound that landed like a confession.
On the second morning of their very temporary romance, the human found himself rehearsing how to hold hands. Not because he didn't know how. Humans invented the art form. But because she had warned him that for her species, hand-holding was equivalent to whispering sweet nothings directly into someone's soul. Her people didn't even touch shoulders unless someone was dying or confessing dramatic affection. So when she arrived at his door, armor off, casual uniform on, and already blushing a shade of violet that indicated catastrophic embarrassment, the human understood immediately. It is time, she said. He inhaled. For the gesture. Yes. She swallowed audibly. For the mutual regard. They stood in the corridor like two teenagers attempting to reenact a romance scene neither wanted to admit they'd imagined. He lifted his hand slightly. She flinched. Sorry, he said quickly. Too fast? No. I just. She paused, scanning the hallway as if checking for hidden witnesses. I am prepared. Mostly. Do you want to practice? He asked. She froze. Practice? Yeah, like a rehearsal. So you don't faint in front of your whole squad. Her crest twitched violently. Humans rehearse affection? Not usually. But this whole situation is weird, so I'm adapting. She looked at his hand, then at her own. Very well, she said in a strangled whisper. We will practice. He reached out again, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she extended her hand like a soldier offering a ceremonial blade, tense, sweating, expecting an emotional explosion. When their palms finally touched, she jerked like she'd been hit with a static shock. Her fingers twitched, stiff at first, then trembling with a softness he hadn't expected. Oh stars! She whispered. It is warm. It's a hand, he murmured. Your species are so, temperature variable. And soft. Why are you so soft? I moisturize, he said. She blinked in confusion. Moist, what? Never mind.
The rescue ship pierced the atmosphere in a blaze of thruster light, like hope wrapped in steel. It should have been the happiest day either of them had seen in 3 long years. Instead, Myra braided her silver hair like someone preparing for execution, and Arik polished his boots like someone hoping denial might alter reality. A Federation patrol meant safety, medics, food, structure, everything they had earned, and everything that threatened to tear them apart. The drop team arrived at dawn, armored troops fanning out in crisp formations, scanners humming, medical drones flitting overhead. They moved through the colony like analysts inspecting a crime scene rather than a home. Mira tensed instantly. Arik shifted closer, not touching her but standing where a shield would stand. Small gesture, loud message. A medic approached with a polite, sterile smile. Which one of you is the human? Arik raised a hand. That'd be me. And, just like that, the shift happened. Not hostility. Worse, pity, gratitude, possession. A dozen offers. We'll get you debriefed. Soldier will assign you to a proper world. We'll fast-track your settlement claim. Everyone talked about his future like it was a promise already engraved in law. No one asked Myra anything. The troopers didn't know they were wounding her. They assumed silence meant indifference. They scanned her wrist, confirmed her lack of citizenship, and moved on. She might not have existed at all. Arik saw it every cut. He tried to stay by her side. The crew kept redirecting him. Right this way, sir. We need you in the shuttle. You'll be safe now. Safe, the word that meant nothing if Myra wasn't included by the time he shoved past the 5th soldier to reach her. Mira had already built walls behind her eyes, the kind she forged young, the kind that kept her alive in a world that treated her as disposable. It's fine, she said, toned to steady. Go with them. No, Arik, don't. I'm not leaving without you. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. It was brittle, defensive, the laugh of someone bracing for pain before it arrives. You don't get to choose my fate. It's not romantic, it's selfish. Wanting you alive is selfish, he shot back. Wanting me permanently isn't about survival. Her voice cracked. That's attachment. Attachments get people killed. He stepped closer. We're alive because we were attached. She broke then, for only a second, the girl who had once woken up in a crater beside her mother's body, who had learned the universe took everything if you dared want anything. She turned away so he wouldn't see the tears she refused to let fall. A lieutenant walked over, expression stiff and official. Mr. Hale, the transport leaves in 6 minutes. You need to board. Your companion will be transferred to Velric's settlement services once we determine her work classification. Standard process. Work classification. It landed like a punch, not citizenship. Not freedom. Labor. Mira's shoulders curled as if she was shrinking to preempt the blow. Arik moved in front of her like instinct, like fury made into flesh. New plan, he said calmly. She comes with me. The lieutenant blinked. That is not how interspecies processing functions, sir. Arik smiled. The polite, terrifying smile of someone who had survived war and knew how to weaponize charm. I'm sure we can sort out the paperwork, sir. There is no paperwork. Arik didn't look away from the officer. Then we'll invent it. Silence fell. Troopers shifted. Hands hovered near weapons. Mira's breath hitched, not in fear for herself, but fear for him. She grabbed his sleeve. Arik, stop. They'll arrest you. Vel, he turned to her, voice low, raw, breaking. I don't care. I can survive anything but losing you. That cracked something in her the storm and the raiders never had. She shook her head, voice trembling. You think I don't want to go with you? I do. I want it so much I'm terrified of it. If they take you because of me, they won't take me, he whispered, because I won't give them the chance. Then he did something reckless, breathtakingly, stupidly human. He raised his wrist console, opened the ship's rescue reporting menu, and toggled dependent claimed a status designed for bonded mates and legal spouses. The lieutenant choked. You can't assign that without registered already, Arik said before the officer finished. Behind him, Mira made a shocked sound, half laugh, half cry. Arik dependent means I know what it means. She stared harder, frills flickering. Then you must be my assigned companion. Rylan nearly swallowed his tongue. I'm sorry you're, what? She rose unsteadily to her feet. She was taller than he'd expected, all graceful lines and trembling hands. The colony left, they evacuated, but they would never abandon an unpaired member. They must have requisitioned you. Her eyes brightened with desperate hope. Are you here to sustain me? Which sustain you? He choked, hands flying up defensively. Oh no. Humans don't get assigned to strangers. This is not a mating service. Her frills flared in confusion. But that is how pairing works. A government official selects compatible genetic partners. Okay, stop. Rylan rubbed his face. That is absolutely not how humans date, she echoed, gently tasting the unfamiliar word. Is that another term for breeding contract? He nearly tripped backward into a fisher lady. I am begging you to stop talking. Her expression softened. You're embarrassed. That's a positive indicator of willingness. That is absolutely not. Another tremor shook the ground. Okay, we're shelving this conversation until we're not about to fall into the planet's mantle. She glanced at the lifeless body beside her and something in her face broke. A small, fragile thing cracking at the edges. Before she told me to wait for my assigned companion. She said one would come for me. That they always come. Ryland's chest tightened with something deeper than pity. Hope she'd been sitting here, waiting for anyone to find her, and fate had sent the least qualified human in the entire galaxy. He knelt by the body in silent respect. That was your mother. Lacey nodded. She shut down. Her biocore could not withstand the last quake. She swallowed thickly. I kept thinking she would restart. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they wake up. He didn't tell her the truth. He didn't need to. The truth lay in the stillness. You said your people left? Rylan asked quietly. Yes, they evacuated last cycle. I was delayed by administrative error. Her voice trembled. My name is long. They shortened it wrong in the manifest. She laughed, a hollow, broken sound. I was filed under miscellaneous cargo. Rylan exhaled sharply. That's bureaucracy at its finest. She looked up as another rumble rolled across the horizon. The sky flickered a sickly green. Something deep in the planetary mantle groaned again. Rylan scanned the area. This place is going to tear itself apart. If we don't leave now, we're staying permanently. He reached a hand toward her. She stared at it like it was a mythical artifact. You're choosing to take me, she whispered. Choosing? He scoffed. Lady, I'm human. We are biologically incapable of leaving someone crying in the rubble. It violates the Geneva Conscience Convention. That's not a real thing. It is in my heart. She blinked slowly, frills glowing faintly. You're strange. Yeah, Rylan admitted. We all are. She placed her trembling hand in his, warm light, trusting in a way that made his chest ache. The ground lurched violently. Dust rained from the fractured sky. Time to run, he muttered, and together awkward, mismatched. Completely bewildered by each other, they fled into the dying light of a world collapsing around them.